Today, we're here to talk about FJs, specifically from the FJ company. It all started one day. We were actually at Bonneville Speed Week. We were there for the race, but the FJ company, for whatever reason, was in the news. It was on our minds. Many years down the line, I actually get a call from our friends at Omaze. The reason why they called me to promote the vehicle that they're giving away for a good cause was because it was a classic FJ built by you guys, the FJ company. And when I got in that car, I didn't know anything about it. I just knew that you guys built it, and I turned the key and I started that thing. My mind just blew up because I was just thinking, like, why is it that it sounds exactly like my supercharged FJ Cruiser? Well, it's because it's the same motor. But now we're here with these three cars. The crazy thing about the FJ company and what you guys do is that it's already a mature company. Nowadays, as we've seen, so many people try to get into the space of resto mod and remaking cars, reimagining cars from the ground up that we loved, but they were just never extraordinary. Now, after all this time, it's not just one vehicle that you have to show everybody. We have three right here. So tell us, what are we looking at here?
Well, Larry, it's really great to be with you here. I mean, when we saw the video that you guys did on that Omaze car, we all felt immediately the passion and the understanding of all the work that we put into these machines. Obviously, not everyone is into FJs or Toyotas, but most people are into something that is well crafted and well built throughout a couple years. And we're already at our 163rd resto modification. So what you see back here is the result of a lot of trial and error. Each car has been tested for 1,500 miles at least. And if you remember, back then in the 60s, 70s, even Toyota, all the builders would finish a car and then they would go out and drive it with the odometer off and retorque everything. And that's the way we have to do it, because in essence, there's still a 70s chassis. They're still part of a 70s metal body. It's the result of thousands and thousands of hours of building and testing and driving. We love to drive our cars. It's very easy to imagine what you want. It's very hard to execute one, and it's extremely hard to execute consequently or several. I would go one step further. Like I said, we're obsessive about being able to really drive them and feeling and making their weaker points up to date.
You guys know, if you guys watch the channel, I'm a big Toyota guy. I'm a big Toyota truck guy. I already have two of the modern ones. Hopefully one day I'll own a classic one. But after our experience with building the car on the website and knowing about the company, I saw on the website that you guys are based out of Miami. So the first chance I had, I went out on a whim just to visit the site. And when I actually got there, the receptionist basically told me that, yeah, the cars aren't here. They're all in Colombia, and they're actually built in Colombia. I really want to know more about that operation, and why is it that they're built in Colombia?
I have to say, first of all, we are Colombian. This is my brother and I founded the company, and there's a huge Toyota culture and background in Colombia, simply because there were few cars available, and one of those few cars was certainly the Land Cruiser. And given that our country is full of mountains with very few paved roads, this was the reliable vehicle to take you around the country, period. So it was a necessity for many to be able to work, to transport themselves, to communicate with their relatives in the other city. They would have to have one of those in the house. So many times this would be the only car, because this one was the one that you had to have for specific tasks. And I specifically grew up in the back of these cars. My grandfather had two of these cars. He had a 72, and then he had a 1982 FJ40 in medium blue. And that car is FJ company number 0001. And as I was mentioning to you, we have restored that car for the second time, and now it's supposed to remain as a sculpture somewhere in our garage. That's how we got into these cars. It was simply natural. And this is why the company is there. We could probably build them here in the US. We both now are US nationals and live here, but honestly, the pool of talent is large there. The pool of donor vehicles is much larger there. And we also want to support the country and give back to all these people that are artisans and artists. And we have now about 27 people that are full on. Most of them have been with us for over 4 years, so these are very close people, and they have polished their traits, and now they're able to do spectacular products with huge quality standards.
And how many years have you been operational now?
So we're turning into 8 years old now. Most of the people that are in the company have been working for these types of vehicles for many more years. Our average age in the workforce is probably 45, so there's older people that have been doing these since they came into the country back in the 60s. We have some young guys that have been receiving from either relatives or parents or inside the company. They've been learning the specifics of Land Cruisers, specifics of bodywork in some cases, paint, etc. So there's a deep knowledge pool in the company.
In Colombia, did they have them available for way longer versus the US?
Not necessarily. Pretty much the same time frame, but we did have more models. The US has always been about the FJ40. All of these three are FJ43. We had the 43 since early 1960s, which would be the FJ28 or equivalent. We had a lot more models. We had the FJ70, for example, which is a successor to the FJ40. And that came when the FJ40 was last produced in 85. Then came in 86, came the FJ70, which is still being built to this date. That we've gotten all those years of the 70.
I'm glad you mentioned the 70. I look at something like that, it's still boxy, but it's modern, or at least as modern as possible. And I feel like if that was available in the US, I'd be daily driving that right now. You know, my daily driver right now is a LC200, which is, of course, a modern Land Cruiser. I look at it from far away and I'm like, I just wish they would bring it into this country. But there's just so many things I want to dig into, but a couple of things I wanted to touch on. So did you actually drive this when you were growing up?
So I learned how to drive in an FJ70. I don't want to make you envious, but that's the truth.
That's pretty cool.
But to make things a little easier, there's a lot of things here that are from the FJ70. Most of the important things in a car are not FJ40 now, they're FJ70. So the whole front end, rear end, engine, transmission, wiring harness, that all comes out of the parts book for an FJ70.
So then the engine 2GR.
The 1GR.
Oh, it's a 1GR.
It's a 1GR. It's FJ70.
God.
And it's still the engine that comes out in a 2022 rest of the world FJ70 series gas engine.
Got it. So, and then how many liters is this one?
This is 4 liters.
Okay, got it. 4 liters. And then one of the options, of course, is the Magnuson supercharger that you can put on this. Interesting. Okay.
Here, which is the XTRD supercharger. That's the big, what they call the big Toyota supercharger. That's what they call it. But again, the driving sensation in this car is very similar to an FJ70. There was a saying back in Colombia where whenever you were young, but you still didn't have the money to buy an FJ70, you would have to resort to buying a pretty beat up and used FJ40 because they still were valuable. So you would ask people, what is the best FJ40? And somebody that had experienced all of them would say, the best FJ40 is an FJ70.
Got it.
So this car is what you and many people and us imagine as the ideal car, which is keeping the FJ40 body and benefiting from all the advances that the 70 has.
So how does the process work? Like, does somebody contact you and say, we want this car, or let's say they have a donor car? How does it work?
Initially, we started out building our own car and taking it to an auction. And in a matter of 3 years, we were already having enough referrals to be able to do cars by contract. Nowadays, 99% of our business are builds that we contract with people. And there's two ways. Normally, you'll give a car to us for restoration. That is efficient only if that car is extremely valuable to you in a sentimental way. Why? Because we can again source donor cars at a much cheaper rate than most people. Almost 80% of the sheet metal in this body is new galvanneal, galvanized steel, which is much better, it's completely modern. And we rebuilt the entire body with that galvanneal. We keep pieces like the firewall, we keep some pieces like the hood whenever they are in good shape, and we repair some, but normally the whole body, floors, the rear tub, that's all galvanneal made.
And all of that stuff is made in Colombia?
In Colombia.
And I mean, you guys went out of your way to make like the stamping, or do you guys hand do it? Or
great question. There's great stampers in the country. Part of the question why there's 5 or 6 good suppliers of stamped body parts. What we do is we give them our own raw material. We stamp some of those ourselves, but some other body parts we source out. We provide them the material, and they come back to us, and we sort of have to make them again. There's no fender that will come out exactly as the other one. These are artisanal suppliers, very much a handmade process. So we have to readjust everything and make sure that everything fits. So if you look at the restoration pictures on our site, which every one of our cars is documented thoroughly, you'll find that before prepping, we pre-assemble the body on the chassis. So the car is pretty much pre-assembled, and that's where we make sure our gaps are fine. That's where we make sure that the body parts are uniform, or at least they go according to our jigs. And that's why we're able to keep, let's say, a quality control, and we're able to do a series of cars.
The original car never looked this good. You know, the original car probably had just very cheap one-stage paint. It was something that was just meant to last and be good at off-roading. It's just a utility thing. You know, I never had a chance to see these in the showroom as new vehicles, but now what you've created is something that's better than new.
Yeah, and that's, I don't think when we did the first restoration, we never said, okay, this is the first, but then in 6 years, we want to be something like this. Because back then when you start, you sort of fall into the purist bubble where, okay, this has to be exactly like the way it was in the showroom. And so the zinc plating has to be one way. Of course, you would never change components. It has to be the OEM Toyota steering components, etc. It's like a growth in the company and the people within the company and the customers. Because initially the customers also want, okay, it has to be like showroom, right? It's factory spec. But then customers began to change their taste, and they wanted to drive their classic cars more. So they said, well, this steering is really, it just feels like a lawnmower. It feels like a tractor. I can't control the car. There's a lot of play. So you start to do and invent stuff. For example, the steering here comes out of a brand new FJ70 steering box. There's no play in the steering. It feels absolutely solid. It's night and day better than the steering in the FJ40.
The first time I ever drove a FJ40 was in California, and I almost crashed it because as soon as I got in it, I tried to make the first turn in a parking lot, and I turned like 2 times, I feel like, and it still was going straight because it was so loose, you know, and the steering box, it was maybe just not meant to last that long.
Exactly. I mean, remember, these cars sometimes have 500,000 miles, 600,000 miles. The original car will first rust and pieces will fall off rather than the engine breaking or the transmission really dying or differentials, etc. So the big parts are very hard to destroy.
Let's actually talk about these specific cars. This one actually has a very special owner.
Yeah, so this is the car that Bruce Canepa himself our distributor and shop in California, this is the car that he spec'd out for himself. So I met him through vintage racing, and some of his friends had told him about our company. And so one day I drove one of these over there, and he literally stared at the car, went around the car with obsessive keen eye that he has, and touched everything. And he was there for maybe an hour and a half. And very quickly I told him, go drive it. He went to drive and came back and said, I'd like to sell them. I'd like to work on them. And it was immediate. And for us, it's been a huge success in terms of having probably the best partner out here. This is a guy that has done thousands of hot rods and extremely beautiful builds of all sorts. His shop has everything that you can imagine to service a car with this level of detail.
He drives this one. This is his personal one. And also, for those of you guys who don't know, if you want to talk about level of perfection and just level overall in the automotive space, Bruce's place is the official dealer and also service center for these vehicles. But he's also the service center for Gordon Murray's new supercar, which is insane. Like the T50, the T... I said the fact that he has Gordon Murray's engine, that Cosworth engine, just sitting on a stand in the middle of the shop, that's got to make you feel good.
It is absolutely flattering, and frankly, every time we go to their shop, we learn more stuff and we try to adapt anything that we can do better. Frankly, the level of service that these need is extremely low, having new Toyota's hardware. But details, anything that somebody has a scratch or something, their paint shop is probably the best in the US. I would dare to say that. It's a label of quality that really helps us.
So can we take a look at this one?
Sure. Pretty original from the exterior, but as soon as you open the hood, you'll notice it's a brand new again. 1GR 4-liter FJ70 series V6. And everything that goes with that V6 is here. Radiator, all the pumps. We don't have to mess with the electronics because it's the original Toyota wiring harness for an FJ70. Same transmission that goes into a 70.
So that's why I had a chance to drive this vehicle already, or at least your personal vehicle, and I had a chance to drive the Omaze one. There's so many things about this car that makes it a modern car with just old style on the outside, right? One of the things I just noticed is it has hill start assist. For a car like this, I just cannot believe that. I thought it was like, oh, maybe the brakes are sticky.
Right.
No, it's actually designed into it. So that's a stock FJ70 system?
Correct. So if you choose the option of lockers, they are the original Toyota lockers that would go on an FJ70. Even like in the red car, that has the original Toyota air pump that would come in an FJ70.
Wow. Okay, so this is pretty much the closest thing somebody in the US could actually own that is a FJ70.
Absolutely.
Jeez, okay, all right. This even has ABS?
So this even brings over anything electronic that would be in the 70, which are ABS, traction control, and you can turn off the electronics with the original button that would go. We modified the button a little bit to our taste, which says, I think you've seen it.
Yeah. Old school mode.
Old school mode. So, but it's the same system that would be on a 70. So the climate control is a mix between vintage air parts and the original 70s air parts. And the big deal here is we guide the venting through the dash so that we really get some venting to our face and to our body, different from the original, which was underneath the knee pad.
So then what about emissions? Is all that stuff here too?
So all the emissions of the rest of the world FJ70 are here. Since this is a 25-year or older chassis, this is registered as a vintage vehicle, which can be registered anywhere except California and Colorado and maybe some in Washington, some of those states. But in that case, for California, we start with a pre-1975 chassis.
Got it.
So it's exempt.
So this is a G43S. What does the S stand for?
So this is an S because it has the Magnuson supercharger. The only two engine options that we have so far are the normally aspirated and the supercharged. 4-liter 1GR. These, which are the G series, we call the G series because of the 1GR engine. That's why it's called a G43 or G43S or G40.
Got it.
Short wheelbase. But if you want a classic car, we can also build you a classic Land Cruiser. I feel like there's always going to be a demand for the original car, as original as possible. So we do one of those restorations per year, while we do 7, 8 of these cars per year.
Got it. Of course, you know, while I can appreciate the classic one, whether it be carbureted or fuel injected, this definitely speaks to me more. Just because it's usable, you don't have to worry about breaking down. You can drive, you know, as long as you can get fuel, you can fill this up, you can go, and you can go pretty much anywhere too. Let's take a look at this one. This one seems like it's a little more optioned for off-road. You guys have like the King shock suspension on this. I'm sure you can go with a couple different options for suspension.
Yeah, so we have the original Toyota suspension, which is again the FJ70 suspension. For a more desert-like or off-road, we would probably go with the King suspension. Although the old Manimio suspension that is in the green car is also very off-roady. You can set that one up. That's adjustable. So we really like that suspension as well. And this is what we call the Expedition trim. And it's the same base of a car, but the Expedition trim consists of our own off-road front bumper. This one has the larger winch, of course. These are the most potent fog lights that we have for the winter, snowy situations. These yellow fog lights are amazing. Otherwise, this has the front and rear lockers.
And they're electronic lockers.
And these are electronic, so you don't have, obviously you don't have to get off the car. You just do everything from the center console. And this has the ARB Toyota air pump.
So this one is the non-supercharged.
This one is non-supercharged.
Got it.
And here's the air pump. This is where you connect the air jack.
Got it. So if you need to run any air system, if you need to air up, or if you need to use it for whatever, inflatable something.
If you're camping out and you have air equipment, this is where you would connect.
That is so cool.
This has something which is really cool for off-roading and beach situations. If you have pets, which is the marine grade leather or marine grade upholstery. We love this because it's just durable. You can abuse it and have no problems.
Well, let's just take a walk around it. Like the back.
You can obviously choose if you want the jerry can or not. These are extremely popular. Everyone wants a jerry can. We have rear view cameras, which initially when we started doing that, people thought we were crazy, but they come extremely handy. These are boxy cars, they are big. And this has heated seats, front and rear.
I love, love, love the wheels too. Are these cast or are they?
So these are cast, and we wanted to keep the traditional style, but obviously have the benefits of a newer, more modern wheel, lighter. And so we found Braid. Of course, Braid has been very successful doing racing wheels and Porsche wheels. This is our mold, so we simply took the original idea, changed it a bit, and made sure that it fit various Land Cruiser models. And we're going to come out with this wheel for more modern cars like Tacomas and 4Runners. We're going to try and do them in 17-inch, 8.5.
Yeah, because if you look from far away, it looks like a stock wheel, pretty much, right?
Yeah, it's like and you can, it's got the fittings for the. We don't have a car here with hubcaps, but you can fit the clips for the hubcaps, so the Toyota hubcaps will plug right in. There. So this is all the original mechanism, but we've made these in stainless steel. So the OEM parts were not stainless steel. So we've, version after version, we've made them better so to prevent corrosion as much as possible. And the FJ43 came with a hardtop for the Japanese models in 1985. We were lucky enough to get a Japanese version car that needed restoration. They sent it to us from Japan. We restored the car and we asked for permission to mold the hardtop FJ43. So we were able to get the molds of the doors, the panels, the fiberglass roof, everything. And this is how we made a reproduction, I want to say 4 years ago. And now it's the most popular setup, 43 with a hardtop.
Got it, because they normally came with a canvas top?
They normally came with a canvas, and the hardtop was the short wheelbase, the FJ40.
Got it. Okay. All right. So how much longer is the 43 than the
It's
40?
about 7 inches.
Got it. Okay.
But you can feel the difference in length makes a huge difference in space here.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's one of the things that really surprised me about these. When I look at the back, you can fit 4 adults in the back.
Yes, absolutely.
It's a 6-passenger car at this point.
And then there's obviously standard equipment that we have built into the base of the car. We built a subwoofer box, very well hidden in the sort of like behind the wheel well or adjacent to the wheel well. So that's all done from the first steps of the fabrication of the car. That's not something that we add later, but once the car goes into the bodywork fabrication, it's all jigged so that every car has the option to have that sound system.
What about the windows? How do you guys get new glass?
So we had to develop this with suppliers. This new glass is a reproduction. It's not Toyota, but
you guys have to make new glass for it to pretty much match the rest of the car.
Absolutely. We have to cut it to the right dimensions.
It's interesting because after driving yours and after driving the blue one, I noticed that it has better visibility than my FJ Cruiser by a lot. You know, they were better
They were
designed
pretty
back
open,
then.
yeah, pretty open.
Let's take a look at the interior on this one. One of the things I noticed right away when I climbed into the Omaze giveaway car was that you took the FJ80 button.
Right.
You're adapting all of these Toyota things into it, and then also, are you guys making these custom buttons too?
We make these custom, and we try to model them similar to the original knobs. Not only in the shape, but also in the logo that goes in the center.
I noticed that.
Yeah.
And they're raised too.
And they're raised. So we try to keep that, and that's all CNC machined. The signature trim has also a shifter. The shifters are different. This is a very cool piece because we basically take the cluster of an FJ70. We do our own faceplate with our own graphics. We retrofit the font. So the font on a 70 is more modern. We try to replicate the font on the cluster of an FJ40. But otherwise, all the lights and all the indicators and all the warning lights are that of an FJ70. Another thing that the market and we have shifted towards are the seats. The original Toyota seats are beautiful. The bucket seats are gorgeous, but let's face it, they never had the comfort level that these things have. So we buy, in this case, we have the Recaro seats. And what we did here is we buy brand new seats. We take the original upholstery off, and in this case, we did the marine grade leather. These are great for long hauls or for any time. They have the armrests, which are great. Another thing that, the original cars are gorgeous and classic, but things like the indoor lighting, they're just not functional. They don't work well. And so this thing will really light up the interior. We have 2 of these simple details. It's like a no-brainer, but sometimes you don't want to change the originality of the car, but you also don't make the car functional. So
is there one point where you're going to run out of a lot of these OEM parts? I mean, or do you just keep remanufacturing them and making them better? Because I know you are still using a lot of old school Toyota parts.
So I think we have to adapt. In some cases, we have had to build our own parts. Let's say the FJ70 line gets upgraded. we are going to have to retool and find which is the next line to be able to keep this sort of configuration where the body is FJ40 and then the underpinnings are FJ70 or whatever comes next.
The nice thing now is you're able to get all these things new from Toyota too, like the 1GR. You can get them 0 miles, brand new.
Brand new, and the advantage for that also is the serviceability of the car. These are parts that any Toyota shop that has dealt with Tacomas, has dealt with 4Runners will understand. And with our support, if something is too complicated, we can find any sort of part that is needed for this platform. Our biggest market is certainly the US. We've concentrated here, but this car is actually probably more serviceable in many other places of the world than here.
So tell me about the transfer case.
So this is again the same transfer case as the 70s. The 5-speed is the same as the 70s. It's a brand new 2022 transmission and transfer case. These are also obviously detailed. So a lot of USB chargers. We can put a phone charger here. We have here are the heated seats. The buttons for the heated seats.
And then this one actually has a hidden radio too.
Yeah, so the Expedition being a little more classic or off-road themed, we don't want to have the Alpine here or the CarPlay here. This is more of a concealed stereo system. It sounds great, but we try to keep it more classic inside.
Cool.
And of course we do all the plates and the logos are reminders of the past or of all the Toyota graphics.
Yeah, I remember seeing a stock one. It's there's so many instructions. I've never seen so many instructions on a dash of a car to tell you how to use it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's very Japanese. It's like, this is how you use an elevator.
And also, Larry, very important, all of our cars have their own number. In this case, this is a G43 Expedition, as we mentioned. And if you use the barcode reader, it'll take you to the bio of the car. And what that is in our website, it has its own page with the sequence of pictures of all the restoration. So you're going to be able to see the donor vehicle and then the process of the restoration in detail. Unless a client wants privacy and doesn't want to have the car public. So each car has its own number and each car has its own bio, which makes them one-of-ones and traceable, of course. So one of the things I probably mentioned halfway is we do most of the work in-house. Body work, paint, upholstery, most of the finishes, of course, disassembling, assembling, that's all done in-house. Only special coatings like Cerakote, like this Cerakote, we farm out and we do outside. The wheels are made by Braid, like we mentioned, and CNC machined parts are designed by us, but they're milled outside. But again, as part of the jobs that we do personally or in-house, we have upholstery, and upholstery includes the soft tops. These soft tops are made by hand. Fernando is our master upholsterer. This is the original Toyota design. There's a few changes here and there, a few upgrades or updates, but it's very simple. It's light. It's designed to work this way, frankly. I think this is the way that most of them are driven. And the passengers in the back love to drive the car this way. Or you can take the whole side panel off and the car's open and it feels sort of like a convertible with the shade, of course.
Got it. And then so what about the roll bar here? Is that something you guys add?
The American FJ40 always came with a roll bar. The rest of the world, FJ40s or 43s, almost never came with a roll bar. That was a US option for safety, and in general the American version US cars were more heavily optioned. So what we did is we took an American FJ40 roll bar and did a replica, but we added a couple inches to make it exactly look the same as that, but in a 43 length. And we also have, and none of these cars have it, but we have a heavy duty roll cage. If somebody's going to do heavy off-roading, rock climbing, or he's going to be out in the desert all the time, then we do a proper roll cage. It's heavily anchored in the car, anchored in the back, and it'll come all the way up to here, and it anchors here to the front of the body. That's a special request, and we've done several of them.
It looks great though. This is something that I'm not used to seeing because obviously they were never available in the US, you know, but I think it looks great.
Obviously, in a car that has, without the supercharger, 240, 250 horsepower, if you're going 75, 80 in the highway, it'll make noise. So if you're going to be doing those speeds in the highway and you're going to be out in the highway more, then the hardtop would probably be a better choice. But for 40 mile an hour, 50, 60, or off-roading, this is the way to go.
So the 1GR stock, 240 horsepower?
240 horse, and with the supercharger, we figure, well, we don't figure, the dyno says it's 30% more than that. But in general, it's just more than enough for this platform, and basically what ends up happening is in the highway, you'll be doing 70 and you're feathering the gas.
I'll tell you right now, this chassis was meant for 100 horsepower, right? And the fact that it has 3 times that horsepower is kind of insane.
And it's a good point, because if you see the pictures of our restorations, we basically take the old chassis. The first thing we do is we put it on a jig, make sure it's straight, and it's heavily inspected for cracks, for rust. Then we take the chassis and dip it into a zinc pool at 400 degrees Celsius, which takes all the possible rust of the inside, the crevices of the chassis, and takes care of that. And it comes back to us. That's one of the other things that we do outside of the company. It comes back to us, and then we remanufacture the chassis. It's reconstructed in the front so that all the FJ70 suspension braces, we weld that into the chassis to accommodate for the coil suspension in front. And it's reinforced throughout the chassis, spot welded all throughout the chassis. And then there's 3 more longitudinal braces that are added for structural rigidity to take 3 times the power. You have to do it.
So then how much of the original car is left after you've done all of this stuff?
I think it's not more than 20%. Between the pieces that are modified and the pieces that are added new, it's probably 80% of the car.
This is the main reason why this handles like a modern car.
Yeah. So I would say the first and biggest change that we did in these cars was to add the FJ100 or FJ70 steering box. And this basically has much less moving parts than the original FJ40 steering system. So we adapted an FJ100 first, and now this is 100% FJ70 parts. This is way sturdier, less moving parts, less possibility of steering play, and there is no steering play. That was a first step. And then the second step is, of course, the 40 has leaf spring suspension in the front, and this coil suspension of the 70 is much better. It has trailing arms. The car is able to track better in the front, which in turn makes it brake much better and handle much better. So the whole front suspension takes care of most of the dynamics of the car, and it's really night and day difference from the original design. We had to 3D design all these braces to incorporate the entire these are new parts that come from a 70, and we simply bolt them onto our specifically designed braces welded into the original chassis.
There's just so much more to unpack, and we can probably spend hours on it. But we got to end this video somehow. And I think a great way to end this video is to talk about prices. And one of the things I was thinking about when we were just kind of looking through these cars, it makes me wonder how much a bone stock 0 mile FJ 43 or 40 would cost now.
It would be worth a lot of money, and there are people wanting and able to pay for that kind of money around the globe, and of so many different backgrounds, that it would be the type of bidding war that would create some sort of huge world record for this type of car.
Well, these cars are pretty much the closest thing to that, right?
Well,
In terms of like a brand new
yes,
FJ that you can drive and you can own.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. Our pricing comes out from the sheer amount of hours that goes into each car. Our starting price is around $210,000 for the base model short wheelbase. And if you go to our site, fj.co, you'll find our builder, and like you said at the beginning, you can add on or choose the specifics that you want in the car. Obviously, there's special orders. There's always something that somebody wants. Can you do this for me? Can you add that? We can do a bunch of those options or upgrades most of the times, and those are extra. But normally our average ticket is $250,000 after options, and that'll give you a brand new Toyota power plant, brand new everything, wrapped in our body.
How much did the one sell on Bring and Trailer for, the one that I shot?
So the Omaze car is the world record for an FJ40 based product, and that sold for $270,000.
And these also have warranties.
And these have a full warranty for 6 months.
So then let's talk about prices for this. This one's your personal one, and that one is Bruce's, and that one is actually for sale right now.
Correct. So these two are supercharged, which the supercharger nowadays is a $15,000 option. So these two cars, this is around $250,000. Bruce's car, because it has the signature trim, which has a better sound system, the, let's say, sportier seats, and the Evo Corsa wheels, for example. This is about $265,000, $270,000. And this car is for sale now at $255,000. This is the Expedition, for a farm, for the mountains, for skiing. This is an amazing car, and it's ready now, and you don't have to wait 12 or 16 months to have it.
It sounds like a lot for a vehicle, but when it comes down to it, if you really want something like this, if you had $250,000, good luck building this. Really.
Absolutely.
That's all I have to
It's
say.
very hard to build.
I know how much things cost. I know how much things, how long things take when you're building something. But that's incredible. It's super cool. Thank you so much. I think we should take one of these out. We're gonna go drive it, and then I'll kind of give some impressions on camera about it. But we got a lot more shooting to do. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys enjoyed all the amazing B-roll and all the stills we've been able to get. Thank you so much. It's been incredible. But yeah, we still have to drive them. We're taking out Bruce Canepa's personal FJ.
This is the rear view camera mirror.
Oh, how does that work?
So if
I go into
reverse.
Oh, what? Oh my God. That's really cool because it's hidden.
Yeah.
You can't tell that it's part of it.
You mentioned that the visibility in this car was better than the FJ Cruiser, and it is.
Yeah.
Except it's probably as bad in the back.
This is the most amount of fun while keeping under the speed limit. Like just driving this slow around
It's fun.
is just so cool,
Exactly.
It's like you're just driving this thing that makes you feel special.
Yeah.
It feels special right off the bat, and you don't even need to go that fast, even though it has quite a bit of
You could,
grunt.
but you don't need to have fun. So this car, you're going to feel, compared to the soft top, you will feel a smoother ride. It's more compliant in the back simply because of the weight of the hardtop. Hardtop is pretty hefty because it's metal.
Yeah.
That ends up making the car smoother on the road. But add to that, this has the OME, Old Man Emu suspension, adjustable suspension. And that is definitely a more compliant suspension for this type of driving. There's a lot of torque. You can pretty much drive the car in a higher gear and there's still torque there to feather the gas and it'll get you out of anywhere.
Yeah, and like we were able to drive at a higher rate of speed yesterday when I was driving your car, and I was in fifth gear most of the time.
Exactly.
Yeah. So then, one question that I haven't asked you yet: what does Toyota think about this car, or what does Toyota think about you?
I have no idea. We've never spoken to anyone in Toyota, or they haven't really approached us as a company, or we haven't met at an event or anything like that. It's incredible, but I think Toyota is so large, so big, that hasn't happened.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure driving these.
Anytime now, you just have to buy one for yourself and build it at your own spec.
I mean, I've already built it online, you know. I guess the next thing is just like go to the checkout or whatever.
Exactly. We'll take care of the rest.
Awesome. Very cool. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry.